Our tremendously coveted guest today. So I'm really, really impressed at such a young age and such an accomplishment as well. And there we have it. So we are live on the Empower Hour show this evening with Dr. Parvinder Shergill. Just before we go into her introductions of how she's achieved and where she is and who she is as an individual, I just want to cover a few things with reference to welcoming everybody to the Inspired Tribe, welcoming everybody to the Empower Hour show. Today is episode 61. I cannot believe it's got that far. And episode 61, I've received such great love, connection, and adoration and support from all of our listeners, the Inspired Tribe, and all of our partners at the Salam radio station, which is our local Peterborough, local Islamic radio station. And the support and love that we get from everybody. I have received so many texts back saying what an amazing show, and also today, what a brilliant actual guest that we have. So just to get clear, this evening is the Empower Hour show, where we get very close with each and every one of our actual guests, and we really connect with them humbly, and they tend to feel really comfortable and share in an empowerment process some real internal, honest views of their life and their journey in sharing with our community. So without ado, I'm going to introduce our guest this evening, and it's Dr. Parvinder Shergill. She is at such a young age, a beautifully, not only physically a beautiful individual, but a beautifully, excitingly achieved individual who's delivered everything she ever wanted in her life. We're going to go much closer into her genuine journey of life and what she stands for today in a moment. But if you've tuned in, you need to know this young lady is a doctor, a psychiatrist, so she's in the medicine field. She's what we classify as a person who won't, an activist who won't stand for no. She's a true embodiment of female entity and energy. She focuses herself within the arena of creating an equal opportunity for all, not only just the BAME, not just the females, but everybody as a whole. She's a film writer, director, actor. She's been involved in plays. She's been involved in London shows. My God, if I could carry it on going, it would be so much. I just want to get straight to the point. I want to welcome Parvinder. Please welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. What a lovely introduction. I feel a bit bashful. That's so nice. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's the truth. So I think we should feel bashful, which keeps us humble and warm to everybody else as well. But do you know, the honest truth is, I don't think I've done half of justice. I've got so much more that I could have shared. But for everybody who's our Inspired Tribe regular followers who communicate, and they know that the people that we select for these particular shows are real world stoppers and game changers, and you're none other than all of the above and more.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Right, so I'm afraid we get straight to it. Everybody who's joined in, they know that there's no faffing around and there's no slowing down. We've got people who follow us from all over the world. You know, people from North America, South America. Even the other week, I had a text via my WhatsApp from somebody from Brazil saying that they tuned into one of the Empower shows. That's just warming. And Africa's the whole of the continent, Africa, Europe, Central Eastern Europe, you know, Slovakia, etc. And also India, Pakistan, and Australia, to say the least. So it's a beautiful, beautiful journey that we share. And we're so humbled that we've got such a great tribal connection with everybody on the same ethics. Well, this show specifically is about you, Parvinder. So I'm going to go straight to it. We're not holding back at all, I'm afraid, my darling. I'm going to go straight to it. So where are you from?
So I've been born and raised in West London. My parents are from the Midlands, and my grandparents moved to the UK, I think really in the 50s, to be honest. Most of my family are here. So I guess that makes me third generation British Indian. So I still live in London, but I did live for 2 years in Cambridge and Peterborough when I first became a doctor.
Yes, the famous Peterborough. That's where we're from. Yeah. Our audience listens to it from Peterborough as well. If anybody doesn't know where that is, it's a little old city in Cambridgeshire in the UK, United Kingdom. Or for the people who are from India and Pakistan and Asia, we'll call it London. So this is kind of where we are. No disrespect meant. It's just a funny conversation. I have a lot of conversation with elders, and that's how they resolve or how they refer to England. So you actually spent some time. I mean, we'll go through that in a bit more, if you don't mind, in a moment. But you spent a lot of your time in London, obviously growing up. That's where you grew up, isn't it?
Yeah, so I went to school just outside West London for a really long time. It was a girls' school. And then for sixth form, I moved to Hammersmith for my sixth form. It was a girls' school as well. Probably that's why I'm so female empowerment. And then I decided I wanted to go to university in London. So I did philosophy and medicine for 6 years in London. And then I felt it was time to kind of come out of London. So which is why I picked Cambridge, because it wasn't too far, but it was far away, enough to kind of experience outside London life. And I really enjoyed it. Honestly, it really made me open my eyes to, because you get so immersed in London culture that even like simple things like in London, it's so funny in the sense of when you're walking down the street, you don't say hello to anyone, right? But as soon as I was in Cambridge, like you pass someone and you go, hi, good morning, and someone isn't like looking afraid and that you might hit them or something or mug them.
That's such a big thing to share, because it's much the same in Peterborough as well. And obviously Cambridge is known for being the collegiate style of society per se, which obviously means that you have the mentors and people that you communicate and people you're responsible for. But I have to admit that in the boroughs, when I go to London, even in West London, for example, you will say hello to a lot of people, but it's just not the same. When you're walking down, you said such a beautiful way of explaining it. And it's I suppose you could say a little big town.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Everyone can know each other. And do you know what I find? Is it right to say that something like, even when you don't know the person, you're still saying hello to them and they still respond, right?
Yeah, but I found it more so, when I was in Cambridge and Peterborough. I don't know why it's like that, but it's much more friendly. You get on the bus and you say thank you to the driver. It's a bit more. I don't know how I feel society should be. Like we should be able to just say hello. Like when you're on the tube in London, it shouldn't be so weird not to talk to the person next to you, but it is so strange. It's such an odd place, London, sometimes. But
Wonderful.
it was great to move out and then come back. Yeah.
It's a very, very true. So I suppose it's a reflection of of the current society per se, isn't it? So and I think we can all change that, can't we? We can all change. There's one more question I've got to ask yourself. It's just around the earlier stages of your life. What was it like growing up? Obviously, how many siblings do you have, and just a little bit of an insight into yourself.
Yeah, well, I actually really enjoyed my childhood, and I think overall I loved it actually. So my mum didn't have, I didn't have any siblings. So until I was about 11 or 12, so it was just me for a really long time. And
wow! Hang on. Sorry to touch you there. Just 1 second. So you were an 11-year-old child, principally a single child for majority of your early stages of your childhood. Yeah. So it must have been a bit sort of like, hang on a second, here's somebody else. Did you have to share your space with them?
So, so the first year I was really annoyed that she was a girl.
Oh, bless.
I was really angry because I was so used to being the only girl, because usually you have a brother, and I was the only girl in the family, so that everyone all my cousins were boys and they had brothers, and so I guess I was a bit spoiled that way, to be honest. And then so when she came along, first it was a shock, because I basically done my childhood without anyone but me. And then my mum dropped this bombshell that she was pregnant. So I was kind of taken aback. I was upset initially because I was like, I'm not the only princess. And then when it was a girl, my gosh, I was heartbroken. But you know what was the best thing? My sister really is the epitome of what I aspire to be as a woman. At such a young age already, she's such an amazing activist. She's 21 years old. She's at university. She's had to go through all this education, palaver in a pandemic, teachers being on strike. She's had so much against her. She had health problems, and she is the biggest role model for me. She's been on BBC twice. I was never like that.
That's such a warming, humble way of seeing the world, because of the fact that you're actually giving so much love to your younger sister. And
she's amazing.
In essence, you said that she's the epitome of what you wanted to be. So it's wonderful to hear that. That's great. But I'm not going to take away from what you are and who you are. You're You're a doctor, you're a psychiatrist. Obviously, to be a psychiatrist, to be a doctor in the first place. So you've had a beautiful journey so far, and you're not, you've only just tipped into your 30s. So there's a lot of journeying that's gone on there. But before we go into that context of what you're up to now, a question that we always ask ourselves within our community, within this particular program, is we ask our guests to be very humble and honest about sometimes there's significant moments and memories. As a child, obviously there's significant memory of the fact that you had a sister, sorry, who was a daughter in the family who was, after a long period of time, 11 years, and you had to share something, but actually that's turned to adoration and love, actually. But in your life, you've done an awful lot. Now, I'm going to go through this a bit later in the interview itself, but right now I just want to know, and I'll probe, we have a significant moment in your life sometimes which tends to ground somebody and tends to wake them up, if you understand where I'm coming from, and life becomes much more meaningful from there onwards. Now, I also know that you had a similar scenario in your world. Is it okay to share with the audience today sort of like what was that moment in your life? What was that?
Yeah.
We call it a life-changing moment. What was that significant change in your world? Your life-defining moment.
Yeah. So I feel like I've had a couple, but one that really stands out was so about 2 years ago, my granddad died, and he actually died of medical negligence in the NHS. And for me,
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. And so for me, sort of a lot hit me, because that was the year I turned 30, and also working in the NHS, and I know how hard I work as a doctor. I went through a lot of sort of emotional conflicts about, what am I doing working in a system that's let my person down. And it really is funny. It is funny when someone close to you passes, and it's natural, but you really reevaluate your life. And I was also going through that stage of turning 30, and I was reevaluating anyway, and it was at the same time. And, it really made me look at myself, and I thought, wow, I've really forgotten actually who I am. My granddad came here for better opportunities. So, I would never be a doctor, if I was back in India. I would never be an activist the way I am if he hadn't come over. That's how I see it. Like, he has given me my life. And then I thought, it makes you think about where you're going in life and your career and who you are and what you stand for. And I remember thinking, I've forgotten that. And I really want to be a creative again. Like, I love acting. That is my passion. And don't get me wrong, I'm really grateful I'm a doctor and I can help, especially in this pandemic. And I'm grateful for everything. And I really, from that day when he passed, I looked at everything with gratitude. Instead of going down the grief, instead of going down the anger and the hate towards the system, and I'm working in a system that's let him down, I saw it as, what? I know that I'm not going to be that medical negligence for someone else's granddad. Wow. And I'm going to be the person I want to be. And I went to acting school that year alongside being a doctor. And now, every day I'm grateful for what I can give other people. So now I'm a film director, I'm an actress, I'm a published writer, I'm a podcaster, I've gone to Parliament, I've won an award for being a doctor. And I think if it wasn't for him, and I feel like if he hadn't passed, this would not have happened. I feel like he's looking down on me.
I just want to sort of interject there, if I may. You've covered an awful lot of information there, and it was very emotively delivered. And that's so amazing how an individual like yourself can still look up to a grandfather figure, from a third generation of the UK, not just the fact that we're BAME or the fact that you're an Asian female, but somebody specific. And I know you're very specific about that. That's why I'm bringing that up. Otherwise, I would never talk about it. For me, that caste structure of even saying I am BAME is within itself the limitation within itself, isn't it? So my question is just to reiterate that you felt so touched by the fact your granddad passed through medical negligence that you could have taken a journey and said, okay, enough's enough. I don't believe in this system anymore, and I will no longer support a system that didn't support my family and one of the most important people in my life. But actually put that past yourself, and you moved yourself forward and decided, no, I'm going to create the change to ensure that I don't be that person for anybody else. And more importantly, so that hopefully you could become I suppose, that light within your small pod of doctors and seniors, that it perforates through, that could never happen again on your watch, in essence. Now, a lot of individuals would have taken this into a very negative way. That it's a downer, because I lost my mum in 2018 as well. I've shared it many a time on these shows, and that's the same year you obviously lost your granddad. With gratitude, and I'm very, I feel very, very sentimental, the fact that we lost our elders in the same year. But life does continue. But at the same time, you reflected and looked back on yourself, and then decided that, you know what, I need to do something that possibly I want to do as a child, which was the acting. So I'm going to ask you a question. Were you always that creative individual, or did you always find yourself attracted mostly to medicine?
I have wanted to be an actress since I was like 3 years old. My dad raised me on poetry, films, and chess. So I was raised very creatively by my dad, even though he's very academic. And my parents always installed into me, you can be creative, but also be intellectual and academic, be balanced as a person. So I did like fencing, I did rowing. I was on the swim team. I made a charity. So my parents always said to me, be the best version of yourself. So I always wanted to do acting. And the reason I didn't pursue it, and I was going to at 17, it was frankly a multitude of things. One, I was really shy. I was bullied growing up. The industry, I don't fit in that Bollywood world. I was raised on Hollywood films. I'm very Western, although I appreciate obviously my roots. And when I was growing up, there was one film, Bend It Like Beckham, and there was nothing else. And I thought, I thought very practically, because I'm a practical person. I thought, one, I'm really shy. The industry will eat me alive. I'm not ready for it because it can be brutal. And also there's nothing for me to go into. And I love academics. I love literature. I love poetry. So I thought, okay, let me get a degree that is literature-based, academic, and later on I'll see what happens. So I did philosophy, and I did medicine, one, to let my family know I'm serious. They wanted obviously me to get a strong degree to protect myself, but also medicine is global. I can take it anywhere in the world. I can go into PR, I can go into media, I can go into laboratory research. I don't have to be a doctor. It opens a multitude of pathways. And I thought, this is a powerful degree, and it will help me get some life experience, become confident, get what I need. And also philosophy will just expand my mind. So I'm really grateful I went down that route, because it's made me a great director.
That is just truly inspiring. So I want the next generation to just think about this. I mean, we inspire children, from 11, 12 years onwards. They listen to this show. We're very, very humble that we have this information there. But actually, you've just proven something there, that going through an academic route, still being able to achieve that at excellence level, doesn't necessarily mean that you cannot be an unbalanced creative. You can actually be a creative as well. But what I think we're going to touch in the second half, we're not there yet. We've got so much more to talk about yet. That you've actually proven how you've got more validation in everything you do just by being a doctorate in medicine. So you can talk about biosciences. You can be involved in literacy in the sense of movies and film and drama, which we'll talk about later. But what I'm really trying to understand inside your mind is that you've sat there, you're opening up an opportunity to show that the generations can be academic and can be creative. That's the most wonderful message. And also, it's never too late. That's what I'm also hearing, that it's never too late. You were, around 30 as a circle, you said yourself, when you decided to take acting again. So when you did take acting, did you stop medicine or did you continue medicine?
No, I continued it. So I went to acting school part-time whilst also being a doctor. So I was juggling quite a lot. That was a difficult year. And then I
was going to say, as you do, that's so
as you do,
isn't it? Yeah, not.
And then I finished acting school end of last year in December. And then I've just got out there. I'm making my own stuff now. So now I'm a professional director and actress. So
wow.
And
wow.
I think, what you just said about it's never too late. It's really hard when you're young. And I remember this so clearly. When you're 16, 17, you think if it doesn't happen now, it will never happen. And it's really hard to see out of that sort of narrow viewpoint. But actually, most successful people are later on in life. You know, if we look at the big time Oscar winners, you know, Olivia Colman, she's just won an Oscar and she's later on in life. You know, people become successful later on and you change your career, and actually life experience and knowledge is power. That's what I really believe. So things work out, and if you're meant to do what you want to do, it works out.
Wonderful. Great message. Now, one of the key things I'm going to share yourself is just something that actually, I suppose, it amplifies what you just shared there. And thank you for being so passionate about it as well. My eldest daughter, her George, when she went away to university, she obviously chose her subjects. And when she started her degree, she started to get really uncomfortable. She was away from home, one thing. It's the first time she went into student accommodation. And this is some years ago. She's about 24 this year anyway. So she then turned around and decided that I think I've made a mistake, that I don't think I've got the right degree or picked the right topics or the right direction, modules. I said, okay, but bear with me 1 second. Let's just have a think about this. If you think that what you've got to decide to do right now is what you're going to do for the rest of your life, I think that's going to be the biggest mistake you've made. So the question I asked her specifically, I said, when did you decide that what you're going to do now in your current academic journey is what you're going to do for the rest of your life? I said, because when I started off in retail. And I was gifted very, very humbly by my parents to have been able to take over one of the businesses at that time. Obviously, I progressed that very quickly in the Peterborough local area, know my history very well in a lot of the natural. But my point here is that if I had started my career thinking that's what I would do and that's all I'd be, I wouldn't have started. I would have done something completely different. And I can just be as humble as yourself and say that those experiences have been wonderful. So I just want to strike back a little bit, if I may, just talking a little bit more about the medicine and your journey there, because we're going to talk about your acting career in much more depth in the second half of this particular interview. But in the doctoring career, when you're a doctor, you've been a couple of years ago, you were also hurt by the fact that the system failed your grandfather, and I'm very saddened by that myself. But if I can ask you a question, what was the journey like? You know, you went from university to a doctor, you know, or at least an undergrad, you know, so it's understudy of a doctor, as in medicine. So you spent time in Cambridge, and that was a complete stark, kind of say, opposite to London. And then you also went to Peterborough, which again is different again. So, you know, talk a little bit about what happened there in your world.
My gosh, the first 2 years I graduated as a doctor, I have to say, were the hardest years. So firstly, obviously, you know, you come out of university at 24, you still feel like you're still an 18-year-old, you've just entered university. And then suddenly it is a realization, like, I will never forget my first day. You realize someone's life is quite literally in your hands.
Wow.
And it is the most, I have to say, the most petrifying feeling in the world to know you're responsible for someone's life. And when you realize that, oh my God, I can't really explain what it's like to be a doctor unless you're in it. But the first year especially, because I'm someone that I like to work hard. I learn when I work hard. So I picked Cambridge on purpose because they had a huge tertiary hospital, you know, transplant surgeries. You would quite literally carry like 3 bleeps at the same time. I remember I actually fainted and admitted myself to A&E when I finished my A&E shift. Like, you work hard.
Pardon again. Sorry, hang on. As a junior doctor, and you fainted on ward.
I've had a few experiences. So I remember one shift, it was in Cambridge. I finished my A&E shift and my whole face was like exploded out. And I was like that for like 5 hours. And I finished my shift. And then when I finished, it was literally half of it. It was like, ooh, my whole eye, everything. And my eyelid was like puffed out. I don't know what happened. I think I was just so exhausted. And then I finished my shift, handed my bleep, and then I admitted myself to A&E. It was so odd. And then another shift, I don't know why I'm laughing. I guess it's like the only way you can think about it is laughing or crying. But I was in Peterborough, and because I picked a lot of surgical shifts because I wanted to be a surgeon, and it's hard on your body. I have to say it's hard. And then I was on a night shift and I fainted, I had to be whisked away into a labor bed because I fainted. It was so embarrassing. And then an hour later, I had to perform surgery on a patient.
No, hang on a second.
Yeah.
Whoa. Hang on. So you've just passed out
Yeah.
through sheer exhaustion
Yeah.
as being a junior doctor.
Yeah.
And then you've got to perform surgery an hour later. So
Yeah.
I've got to say honestly, how did you get yourself back into sync?
Honestly, I'm someone, I don't know, honestly, it's madness when I think about it, but it was one of those situations where I'm someone, I'm very hard on myself. You know what I mean? Like, it won't matter if I fainted, I still have to finish my job, and I refuse to like hand that over. So I'm someone, yeah, yeah. So it was a pride thing as well, and also I felt safe enough to do the surgery. Obviously, I wouldn't otherwise, but yeah, I don't know. You need to be very mentally resilient, I feel. You know, that was the only way that got me through, because it was really hard, I have to say, really hard. The first 2 years I was away from home, you know, I'd finish quite literally at like 11 p.m, be back in at 6 a.m. every day. It was physically exhausting, you know.
So literally, doctors, I've had a number of doctors on this. So you'd start at 6 a.m. in the morning.
I'd be on there at 6 a.m. on the ward.
So that means you've got to be there by quarter to at least, or even past.
Yeah.
Fine. But then you're literally constantly at it until 11.
Yeah, and it was so bad. Like I wanted to stay past 11, but I only left because I was so exhausted. And I actually got hospital accommodation throughout the 2 years. So literally I would finish like my shift, I would walk like 5 minutes and be in bed, because I don't know how people got home. Like, I was so tired. But anyway, no, look, I don't look at it in a negative way. I look at it, like I said, laughing, and I look at it fondly, because really it has made me the woman I am today. You know what I mean? I'm physically resilient. I'm mentally, you know, able to get out of very pressurized situations and not flaff and not get anxious. So I'm grateful I picked very difficult hospitals to work in, because I wouldn't be the doctor I am today.
That's such a positive message for the generations, that the grit, the hard work is exactly what we have to produce here. And this is what the Empower Hour is about. It's about showing that empowerment. So the question is that much the same as the army does to individuals, where they kind of like, did you feel that you were kind of, I suppose, stripped back and broken down
100%.
as a character and then built back up, or did you have to do that all yourself? What was
it completely tore me apart. So Cambridge especially, I felt, I always say I felt like it was destruction. Like, it was just pitiful. Like, I remember being on my birthday at 4 a.m, sitting in a dark corridor with a cupcake that I brought and saying happy birthday to myself. Like, it really destroys your soul, like, and you miss out on so much opportunity, and people forget, as a doctor you still have exams, so you're still revising in between those few hours you get home, and you still have to do audits, and you still have to do this and that and that, and there's just so much. But you know what, I lifted myself back up, and that's why I have become the woman I am, because you can't expect anyone to do it. And that was the hardest thing as a doctor. You normally have your mum and dad to help you, or you can go to a professor or a teacher, but you have to be all of these things for yourself and parent yourself. So I'm grateful for the experience, to be honest.
Wow. Do you know what? You're a true inspiration for everybody, and at such a young age to have achieved so much. But, you know, never said no, and never taken it as a broken thing, a broken part. You know, as far as I can see, you deserve everything you've ever achieved in life, and may God bless you consistently with the next level. That inspiration is what we're trying to share and impart into everybody who watches these shows and these events. And that's why they're an hour long. They're not 5 minutes short. We've actually, can you believe, actually come to halfway spot and travel so quickly. I told you this before, you know, thank you very much for tuning in. If you've just joined us, this is the Empower Hour episode 61 with Dr. Parvinder Shergill, who is not only, I'm really would request, we're playing this live, so please do scrub back to the start and just watch the start of this particular interview, and you'll get to learn and know her in a much more intimate way of how what most people would say was breaking them, and I can't continue, and the hang up the hat, but the sheer inner grit to be able to stand and say, no, I'm actually not going to give up for that particular reason. That inner strength of, I want to do this, I want to complete, from fainting on ward as a doctor giving yourself, no time to recover. Now, this is not what she's trying to tell you, by the way. Don't do this to yourself. But as a doctor, she knew that she was fine and of safe, sound mind to be able to perform a surgery thereafter, however minor or major it was. But the principle was that she was able, working long hours as a doctor. And we've had many of doctors on this particular show. We're very grateful for it, medical doctors. And this kind of breaking an individual down and building it back up is just, it's a consistent, I'll tell you that now. Our love and our respect goes to every doctor out there. So welcome back to our second half, the Empower Hour show with Dr. Parvinder Shergill. So I'm going to ask you one deep question, Parvinder, that we've gone from the docs and we've covered that inner grit. But you also translated it, as you said a moment ago, with that significant, that defining, life-defining moment, when I suppose you took a deeper aspect or like a view, a take. That's a very poor play take on what you call it, the acting world, a take of your actual life in a conscious manner. Now that was inspired by the passing of your grandfather, which we're very saddened to hear, but you turned it into a positive. We were speaking about earlier on. So in your acting career, you went back to acting school. Can you tell us a little bit about that? How was that? How could you have even juggled when we've already just spoken about these 11-hour shifts nearly?
Yeah, I have to say that was that was actually a very difficult year, and I juggle a lot anyway, but even for me, so it would be times where I was up for like 24, 48 hours because I'd finish a shift, go to acting school, come back, do that, whatever, also have a life. And that was really hard, but it, I feel so alive in acting. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it wasn't a joy, like having to stay up and be tired and do that. And it felt like finally my soul was on fire, like I was splashing colors everywhere. So for me, it was worth it. Like, that's what I mean. I don't shy away from hard work. I don't think anyone should. Go towards a challenge because you always get something so much more. And it was a great experience. Like, yes, fine, there were some egos and like some very difficult situations where people, they have big personalities, and it is hard, like in the industry.
I love the way of putting it, actually. Big personalities.
Big personalities, yeah. So certainly, people try to intimidate you, but I see everything, because of my granddad passing, as a lesson and as an obstacle for me to go through, like almost like an action figure, like ready to like go to the next level. So
brilliant message. Brilliant message. I'm going to push you a little bit on this one. So an average person would say, okay, I'm doing acting and it's something that I'm finding it's something that relaxes me, or I really loved it, etc. I get all that. And there's no disrespect there at all. But I know a little bit about you. We do a lot of research of individuals, but that wasn't enough for a little birdie that I'm listening to. That was just not enough. So my question to yourself is that you talk about being marginalized, but being double marginalized, triple marginalized, in the sense of the fact that you're a doctor, right? So that's within itself in the acting career. It's not necessarily an easy transition. There'll be a lot of disregard for you as an individual, saying you're a doctor, what are you doing in this industry? So that's the first marginalization. The second marginalization is the fact that, let's just make it blunt, you're a lady. Yeah, so it's the female marginalization. Then I suppose we can go one stage further and say the third marginalization could be BAME, which is a person of color. Now, all of this is very, very shameful that there is such a thing in this modern world, but there is. So what did you do with that kind of added pressure and boxing? Did you push yourself to say, well, okay, hang on a second, let's just take this on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, like what I can as an individual do and achieve.
Yeah. Well, you know what I did? I made it my superpowers. So I came out of acting school last year and there was nothing for me because, as you said, people don't see me as a professional actress. Women do not get the lead roles, okay? Men do.
Even in the same age.
And then thirdly, like roles that are for women, then they're not for women of color, and equally not for South Asian women, because people look at me and they don't see an actor, they see a woman, they see a British Asian woman, so they stereotype me. So I was really annoyed about it. So what I did was I said, fine, that's fine. I will make my career. So instead of getting upset about it, I will do something about it. So what I did was I decided I'm going to make my own plays and my own films. So last year I made my own play, which I wrote, and it was called Her. And we
Hang
played
on a
it.
second. I apologize. This is such a beautiful message, beautiful interview for everybody to watch and listen. That you actually turned around. Apologies, I stopped you in the middle there, but it was so important to share. But okay, acting, you weren't getting any roles, and most people say I wasn't getting any roles because I'm going to feel sorry for myself, and this is what it is. This is what it is. I'm because of this, because of that, and people typecast me and they stereotype me. But no, you said actually, do you know what? Heckers with it. I'm actually going to write my own play. I'm actually going to write my own story, and I'm going to act in it myself, and I'm going to direct it myself.
Yeah.
That's not normal, and God bless you for that. So please continue.
Yeah, because I was like, you know what? Like I said, I don't fit in Bollywood, so I'm not going to do that. That's not who I am. I'm in between. I'm between, I have a Western upbringing with South Asian roots. So I was like, I want to write the stories that I want to be in. So I started with my play and we showed it in London, and that was great. And then I was like, this year I want to make my own films.
What was it? What was the play called? Can I talk a little
The
bit
play
about
was called Her, Her, and it's a dark comedy. And I entwined everything I know. So I love comedies. So I put that in the NHS. I put about, Brexit. Brexit was a big issue last year.
Wow.
And I made it an all-female cast. And that's what was really important. I wanted the lead roles to be women.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was great. And then
just a question, how was it received then in the world?
it was sold out, and I was so happy. We got some casting directors, the industry came, they loved it. And then I thought this year, obviously because of COVID, it couldn't happen. I was going to put it on a huge London theatre show, so I wanted to have a run. But obviously COVID happened, so that couldn't happen. So maybe next year when things are settled, then I'll get it on a bigger platform. Because
I'll wait for my ticket. I'll wait for my invitation.
Yes, thank you.
I'll be there shouting out.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry, please carry on.
And then then this year I was like, because I'm someone that I have a lot of goals. So I was like, this year I want to make my own film. So instead of waiting for a director to cast me or whatever, let me write my own film. So I've done 3 of my own this year, and I'm going to do 2 more features. Yeah. So the first one was just before lockdown, and it was a short story, and it was a rom-com about COVID, which was called LOVEBUG, because obviously it's a virus.
And that was before, hang on a second, that was before the COVID sort of like became a pandemic.
So what happened was I was hearing a buzz about COVID, obviously in the NHS at the beginning of the year. And then, I have friends that are doctors globally, and I thought this is going to become a pandemic. So I was like, how interesting would it be to write a short film? But I know, obviously in a pandemic, people are going to feel down, they're going to feel upset, they're going to be grieving. So I said, let's make a comedy. Let's make something light and frothy that people need in a time of stress. But it was especially for my friends that work in the NHS, because I knew it was going to be difficult for all of us. So we made it at the beginning of March, I think, just before lockdown. And literally, I wrote it, we shot it within 5 days. It was a really quick production.
That was actually going to be my question to Zafar. How long did it take you how do you write a story like that? But
I'm a very quick writer. So I've written scripts in a day or 2. So once I have an idea, I just get it out.
That's brilliant. And also, I know you champion mental health as well. So it's something very specific about that. If I'm correct, Her has a bit of a mental health principle to it as well.
Yeah. So actually, Her is interesting because it has LGBT. The lead roles are it has an LGBT theme, and it's about mental health, as well as it's in a sort of fun, dark, psychological thriller sort of play. So I really wanted to obviously tackle mental health stigma, LGBT stigma, ethnic stigma, and gender stigma, and really give women the platform to tell these stories.
And as you said, it was received really well, as the movie itself. But I also know that it was aired by BBC, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, I'm really lucky. So initially, I was going to put it on Amazon Prime, and then BBC somehow amazingly got involved, and they've aired it with their platform a few times, which is amazing. And I really hope it's really made people lift their spirits in this time.
Such an achievement, because obviously the fact that you kind of made it about COVID-19 in such a knee-jerk reaction to it, but very fast, as being a person on the pulse, as being a national health doctor in essence. So can I just push a little bit further? You've written another 2 in total.
Yeah.
What are your plans with this? I mean, why do you feel it's that important to talk about? And basically, I'm with you on this one, but I'd love your view on this. Why do you feel it's so important to talk about mental health and the inequality? What have you
Mm,
seen? The gender inequality, the race inequality,
mm,
and then I'm going to throw a question, which is a stimulus actually. Is it just in our heads? Does that make sense? It's a really
mm,
rude way of seeing it. I know,
mm,
but I want to share
mm.
it because I want both sides of the story spoken.
Yeah. So, well, a number of things like Black Lives Matter. Why has it happened? But it is there. There is a lot of discrimination, a lot of racism, a lot of inequality, and not just with gender, not just with women, because you don't get female directors. Okay, you
Mm,
don't get female directors of color. You don't get even cast of color, whether you're a man or a woman. But you also don't get those opportunities. Obviously, I work in mental health, but what about the LGBT community, the mental health community, the disability community? Where are these figures? So why do you have actors performing disability roles when you have the actors there who are disabled and can play these roles?
beautiful.
So for me, I feel like instead of sitting back and complaining, and we can all complain about this. It's a horrific, what's been going on, and this movement needs to happen. We have to be the future filmmakers to change this. And
Mm,
for me, I want, women to be the lead roles. I want women of color. Two of my films have an all BAME cast, my feature film, which I'm hoping to get on the TV platform, is a psychological drama. So it tackles mental health. It's an all BAME cast. We have two Black actors, two South Asian actors. We have a lead female South Asian, and most of the crew are BAME. So you have to create these opportunities in order for the system to change. We can't just sit back and complain. We have to be that movement.
I
So I
agree.
think it's really important, and especially with mental health, if we look at film and mental health, if you name the films, like if I ask anyone, think of a mental health film, most people would typically think of like Flying of the Cuckoo's Nest, Shutter Island, The Joker, right?
Mm,
Fantastic films, don't get me wrong, they're spectacular. But actually, these are fantasies of mental health, what we want it to be. We want it to be exciting. We want it to be paranoia. You're living on an island, you're killing people, you become a mafia king, whatever. This is not mental health,
mm,
and what you're actually doing without realizing what the film industry is doing. And I love the film industry, I love films, but what they're doing, you are educating your audience from a young age all the way across the board globally, saying mental health is dangerous, you're going to become a criminal, and you're going to become psychotic. Now,
yeah,
this is not mental health. We have to normalize mental health on the screen, and you have to have equal community, ethnic. In the ethnic community, mental health is a huge deal, but ethnic communities don't come forward to get help. So
I agree.
why do you not represent that on the screen? You can have a fascinating storyline representing true anxiety or depression and not have someone becoming floridly psychotic, because that doesn't happen in real life. So normalize it, and people empathize with characters that they can connect to. So why not do that? And I feel in the film industry, it's because they're not educated about mental health. So for me, what I'm doing is I'm combining my work as a doctor in mental health with storylines that are true to mental health, but also cinematically fun, and giving women the lead roles, the BAME community the lead roles, and behind the camera is so important, also having that stigma broken.
That's so brilliant. I've got to just share, it's got to synopsize that a little bit. So there's such a great amount of information there, and I hope that's inspired everybody to stand up. This is not about being, it's not about standing apart. It's about standing together, and it's standing and showing up in the world, which I think is brilliant. We have this regular conversation, a stimulus within my family, because they're very sociological, race orientators. We'll have great discussions with my wife and my kids, etc. And I like to press the buttons, I suppose you could say, playing the monkey, out there trying to pick it out, not due to being agreeant with it, but actually making them more robust within their own thinking process, which you've just shared very, very clearly there, is the fact that just because it's not spoken about doesn't mean it isn't there. That's what you're principally saying. You spoke about typecast, about a handicapped individual being sorry, being portrayed, the character being portrayed by a fully able-bodied individual. And you could say the same about, let's say, a British Sikh or an Indian Sikh who's been portrayed by somebody, A, who's not a Sikh, but
Mm,
B, who has got cut hair, because cutting of hair is a very fundamental belief and structure for a Sikh individual, a Sikh male, that actually being typecast as a person who's got a haircut. By the way, I'm not suggesting haircut and not haircut is any bad or good. No, that's not what I'm trying to say. But I'm saying at least give the person who's got a real head of hair and wears a real turban the opportunity to play the Sikh guy, right? And this is so beautiful the way you've said it. We've had this debate many times in the family, and this is why this is a very personal interview to myself, and I'm very proud to have you on the show. And not only do you push yourself, but you don't just push yourself beyond illness, you know, that kind of thing, but you're pushing yourself to be the light for other people's worlds and say, okay, look, I know I'm going to the extreme, but I need to push this out there so somebody can actually say it. There's just so the last thing I want to share is I want you to talk a bit more about what you're currently doing. Akala, who's obviously I'm sure you're very aware of, he's an individual who talks a lot about Black history, and he specifically says that he was a part of a crew. He acted and he was the interviewer. He was the host of a show. Now here's how deep the pain is. In his book, he recites this very clearly. And he says very clearly, he said that the person who stands for activism was a Black male. He was called onto set for an interview with this particular TV show that he was actually hosting. And he came on and they said, oh, who's in charge? That's the word. And this is the Black person who's actually very much an activist. He said, who's in charge today? And he said, oh, he pointed to a person who's a co-individual, a co-team member who was Black. And he said, oh, great. Who's the host? He said, oh, it's me. And he's Black. He said, oh, who's the producer? And who's the director? And he pointed to this Black lady. And he went, oh. He said, well, who's the producer? He said, that lady over there. She was Black as well. So it was literally a Black cast of team. And the person who stood there, who actually sends this information into the world and shouts the spike, said, you don't get that. You just don't get this. He was like, it's the first time for me. By the way, not a bad thing. He was saying it's really wonderful. Yeah. He said, wow. And what we were talking about was the pre-installed versions, you know, the biases that even the activists have. They're kind of expecting it to be not a BAME cast or not a BAME crew. Does that make sense? Yeah. How have you found the response you've had? I mean, I'm going to be blunt with this, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Do you find that you get further in being received because you're a female, you're South Asian, you're Black, or you're of color, and your whole crews of ladies, and they're all of color as well, of BAME? Is that really why you're getting it, do you think?
To be honest,
or is it because of the fact that your stuff is just brilliant?
Well, I think it is brilliant.
I don't doubt it. Absolutely, I don't doubt it.
I think so. How people receive me, it's people are still a bit taken aback, to be honest, because I think the thing is, people put people in a box. Yeah, people feel comfortable with that. So people have put me in this little box that I am a doctor, or I am a girl, or whatever they want to see, and I look really young and whatever. And then when they find out, because I don't tell people actually I have 2 degrees, you know, I'm this or that. I don't like that, because I like to see how people actually react to me as a person, right? I think it says a lot how people actually treat you.
How they receive you.
And so when I tell them, hey, I'm a doctor, the filmmakers initially are a bit like, wait, what? Firstly, they think I have a brain. And then they secondly think, what am I doing in this industry? So I still kind of have that. But now, because my work's being respected with BBC, you know, I talk with BBC a lot, you know, ITV, Guardian have featured me. I've been in lots of newspapers. People now respect me, and they're starting to respect women. They're starting to respect the South Asian community, the mental health community, and things are changing. And now people, it's slowly, yes, but slowly people are approaching me to direct their films and to be in their films. So I was a lead in a British feature this year. And it's like about time. Do you know what I mean? Like, why is it 2020 for this to happen. And finally, the seeds are planted. I think for everyone, I think people see that change with everybody. But now it does, don't put people in a box. You can be an accountant and you can be an artist. You can be a shoemaker and you can be a singer. It doesn't matter. You can be a mother and you can still be a lawyer. Like, why does it matter? You are capable of so many things, not just one dream, but multiple things. If your dream is to be married with kids, well done to you, good for you. If your dream is to climb Mount Everest, you do it. Don't let anyone stop you. So we need to stop putting people in a box. And I think this is what this year is showing us in this pandemic, and reflecting, who are we? What is our purpose? Who is it, what we want to be, and who do we want in our lives? And so I think people are starting to receive me slowly, and they take me seriously now, because the work I'm doing is serious, is important. And I'm not just saying that because I'm doing it, because objectively people are actually saying that. And it is important, and it's never been done before, and that needs to change. I want one day, if I have a daughter, her to be in a room full of men, be the leader, and there's no one blinks their eye. That's go be a director and win an Oscar, no one blinks an eye. You know what I mean? And they won't say that is the first Sikh female to win it. No, that will be the 100th. Like, things need to change now, and we need to make it happen.
Bless you. You know what? Oh, wow. That is just so empowering to hear, and so well said. So brilliant. That could have been your Oscar. You better remember, you've got to record it now. So you're going to be that, or that's going to be your Oscar.
Play.
Yes, I'm going to give it back to you. You're going to see it on YouTube, and you can copy it and say, do you know what? That's exactly how I felt. I've said it just now. I'm standing on the Oscar stage and say, I'll take my Oscar. Thank you very much. And I want to share this. But do you know what? I'm making light conversation of it, but it's a very deep concept. And I am actually truly with you there. And it's not because of just color, just feminism, just mental. It's just speaking the truth. The truth needs to be heard about how people can and be anything they want to be, anything they put their mind to. And I look at you, and do you know what I feel and hear? Is somebody who's switched on, somebody who's passionate, somebody who believes that this life has been gifted to them, that this life had a purpose pre-installed, and that this life is here to be lived and shared with everybody. So that alone, I thank you for the message you're sharing with everybody. And I really want to, I suppose as an older brother to yourself, just say, wow, well done. Well done. Very, very well
thank you.
And I just want to lead us into a principle here. And I don't mean this in a somber way, because it's actually the Inspired Tribe expect this of us. It's the time when we come towards the end of the interview so quickly.
It has gone quick.
It's like I've only just started to touch the bits I want to share with you. But you've done a beautiful job so far. And I just want to share, I would like to ask you a question. Now, this is not a somber moment. This is not about, and I don't know, as a Sikh and a Sikh myself, we don't believe specifically in burial. We have cremation. But if you could imagine, and I want this to be a positive message for people, not to be the negative message that, oh my God, it's doom and gloom and I'm going to die. Well, it's the truth of this world. And I know you stand by this, because you saw that in your grandfather, and you took it into a positive flow. But it's something that I'm going to ask you. And I'm sorry I'm putting you on the spot here, but it's an epitaph moment, something that's on you could say your gravestone, or something that remembers you for this life that you were gifted and that you lived fully. And it will say something like this, and it will say, Dr. if you want it there, but I have the liberty to put that there. Dr. Parvinder Shergill, the lady who. Now, on the spot, I want you to finish the rest of it. What will you be remembered by? What will somebody look at you and say, wow, this is the legacy that this young lady has left?
I guess like the lady who's inspired me to stand up tall in my lowest moments, and the inspired light that I was born to be.
Oh, wow. So hang on, let me repeat that for you. For everybody who's listening, if you're just getting this. The lady who inspired me to stand tall in my low moments and inspired me to be the light that I was born to be. Do you know what? That is exactly what you're doing on this world and on this planet. Please do not give up. Please do not slow down. In this particular point, I want to thank you for being here, but I want one last question, if you don't mind. Just one more thing. In the famous words of Steve Jobs, and there's just one more thing. If there is a quotation that you would like to leave in the hearts of everybody who's listening today, this evening, and it's been an absolute real from my heart, I want to thank you. But if there's one wisdom quote or something that really makes you wake up in the morning and say, you know, in those lone moments that gets you going and says, this is the reality, what would that be, please?
Eleanor Roosevelt's quote of "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent."
No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. And what does this mean to you? And what's the message you want to break up to the audience here today?
For me, it's very powerful because I've been bullied, you know, at school. I was bullied at one point as a doctor and at university. So I've had it throughout, you know, and, you know, something I've really learned, especially in the few years I've really come into my own skin, is I will never have anyone put me down. And they can try, but it will never stop me doing what I want to do and the purpose and the goal that I have, because I'm important, I have a voice, and I have every right to be here, just like anyone else.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I love the way that you said, without your consent. Does that mean, and I'm talking about probably on a mental health basis, is that literally what I believe, that an individual's framework is they allow it themselves, and I don't mean this in a vindictive way to try and knock somebody down even further, but is there something they can do to ensure that they don't give other people consent?
I mean, this is a huge topic, but to summarize it, I think, you know, consent is, you have to be able to retain information, understand it, weigh, and be able to communicate that information. So when we say communicate, that means if you're deaf, you have to be able to communicate with that person so they understand. That doesn't mean they're not intelligent. So nobody has the right to ever take advantage of somebody in their situation. And no matter what it is, you know, whether it's mental health, financially, whatever it is, and we should only be empowering people. So that's how I take her quote. But quite literally, obviously, you know, there might be moments where you don't have the ability to be consented and you need obviously a guardian or whatever it is in law to do that for you. But even then, nobody has the right to ever make you feel inferior. All human beings are equal. It doesn't matter where you're from, the color of your skin, your gender. I know, especially in the Asian community, if you're not a boy, you're seen as inferior. No, it doesn't matter if you're single. It doesn't matter if you're a 50-year-old woman living her life to the full without children. You are important. It doesn't matter if you're blind. It doesn't matter if you're in a wheelchair. None of this matters. We're all equal. So that's how I see her quote. And it's so powerful. And I think in this time, Black Lives Matter, this COVID pandemic, you know, we're going for the president election, what's going on in our government. We need to remember that. We need to go back to our roots and remember we are all important. And, you know, it doesn't matter where you're from, because we all add something, and we're just skeleton and a soul, you know.
It's just beautiful. I hope that has basically empowered an individual to listen to you, to listen to themselves, to respect themselves, to move themselves one stage further forward and say, no, I don't consent anymore. I am going to be the person I should be. I'm going to live my life, but without the arrogance, but with inner strength and confidence, humility and love. This is just a wonderful message. Thank you very much. You know, honestly, on behalf of myself, the crew and the team that works behind us, Abstract PR, Salam Radio, all of the actual audience, the inspiredtribe.io, anybody who works with us, you know, I really want to say thank you. You have been an absolute blinding light, as we all, you know, we have all experienced today on episode 61 of the Empower Hour. Thank you very much, Parvinder, for being here and being yourself and shining bright.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it really has. And this brings us to the end. Once again, episode 61 of the Empower Hours show, every single week on a Tuesday evening. You want to say one more thing? Go for it.
Oh no, I was like pretending I was shedding a tear.
Oh yeah, I'm going to myself as well. Thank you. So this is the end. Please do tune in and please leave us a comment, subscribe and support our mission as the Inspired Tribe. and the Salam Radio. Please support us here in Peterborough and around the world. Subscribe, comment, please share with us your thoughts, and support each and every one of our guests. And we hope we're doing a great job in giving you that opportunity to have your share and to be inspired yourself. Thank you very much for following us, and I'll see you next week with another tremendously inspiring guest. God bless. Good night.